Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, today we're going to be going first to Scotland, where we're going to be seeing castles and cathedrals and energy farms and food farms, and then we're going to be going to Ireland, where we're going to be seeing towers as well as castles. Today we're taking a look at Rebirth. This is sort of an abstract strategy game by Dr Reiner Knizia, one of my favorite designers, and a beautiful package. Let's see how it plays, and I'll see you on the other side. In Rebirth, each player is going to have their own components. They're going to have cathedrals and castles that they're going to be placing on the board. They're also going to have tiles that they're going to be drawing randomly and placing, like settlements of different amounts, and energy farms and food farms. Now, this game has two sides of the board. The first one I'm going to show you is Scotland. It's a little simpler, and this is what the game might look like 3/4 of the way through, with the different colors, having placed tiles, having placed castles and cathedrals. So let's talk about how turns work and what you're trying to do. Now on your turn, you're simply going to be placing a tile. See, you have all these tiles that you're placing. Now you have a whole supply of these face down, and you're only going to have one of these. You randomly take one, and that's going to be the one that you're going to place. Now you take it the turn before, so you get to think about where you're going to place this, and there's different places that you can place it. Like this is a food farm. Sometimes you'll find energy farms, and sometimes we'll be playing castles, cathedrals, settlements, and stuff like that. So when you have one of these, you can place it on any of the food farm spaces that doesn't have one, like this, or you can place it in an empty space like that. That's your whole turn. Then you would, from your supply, draw a new one. You have a whole big supply of these, and you draw one randomly. So yes, you only get one random tile. You don't get a choice, but your choice is where to place it. Now, why would I place it where? Well, if I place it here, I'm going to get 1 point because I've placed it just right here, and there's nothing else touching it. But let's say on my next turn, I place one here. I'm going to get a point for this, but a point for this because it's a contiguous group. If I place one here next turn, I'm going to get 3 points. Here, 4 points if I have them all. So you're trying to make these contiguous groups, but so are all the rest of the players. So the next player instead might go here. They only get a point, but they're going to block me from trying to get a bunch of easier points there. Now, anytime you go next to a castle, let's say I am the first one here, they're going to place this big castle there. Now, if that's there at the end of the game, it's going to be 5 points for you for every castle that you have out there. Now, if next turn the red player goes here, gets the 1 point, you're tied. This castle has 1 red and 1 blue, and with the castles, if you tie, you're able to take it. Assume if there was still a tie, you would see who has the most food and or energy around it. But in this case, it would just be red would get it. So it's sort of a little bit of a battle of area control to get those. Now let's say it's blue's turn again, and they go here. These are settlements. And you have tiles that have 1, 2, 3, or 4 settlements on there. This is worth a value of 3 because there's 3 of them. But look at this. I am surrounded. I have more here. So blue is now going to take this castle over. Now these settlements are important because when you go to these, some of these have ports, which gets you a point right away. But when it's closed, whoever has the most control is going to get the most points. Now in this case, it's tied 3-3, and settlements are interesting because if you tie, the person who ended this or put the last tile to complete it actually loses the tiebreaker. So you want to get in there early. Now in this case, it's tied 3-3. Blue would have won because of that interesting tiebreaker. In the upper right, you can see depending on the size, it's a 2 size. So first place is 5 points, second place is 3 points, and so on and so forth because there's different size of these settlements, and you'll get those points when those close. Now another types of tile are the energy and food farms. Now these can go, again, this has this, so it can go on these or blank spaces. But so let's say the tan player goes here, and look at, they have 2 surrounding this castle. Blue had 1, so they're going to replace it with theirs. Again, it's going to be 5 points at the end of the game if you keep that castle. Now let's look at this. Let's say this red player places a settlement here. They're now leading 4-2, but there's still 1 more spot to go there. But because they're next to this castle, no one else is there, they are here. They also are thinking, okay, well, there's a good contiguous area for me. I can start getting a bunch of points and solidify my castle here. But also, you'll see that they're next to a cathedral. Now, when you go next to a cathedral, all players can have 1 at the cathedral, and you stack them like this. So gray was already there because they're next to it here, and this goes here. And then you'll draw a mission card. This is going to be a private mission card that you're trying to fulfill by the end of the game. So since there are 8 cathedrals, at most you can get 8 of these. Now, there's different types. This one has to do with cathedrals, energy farms, castles, ports, food farms, settlements. You can see they're color-coded like this, like have the largest energy farm, 5 points if you do. Or medium settlement ownership, occupy the most 2 size medium ones. Or have the most food farm clusters of 3 or more, having the most ports, and so on and so forth. All sorts of different private goals that you'll get at the end of the game, so that gives you strategy throughout the game. Now the game is going to end when you run out of tiles, and you actually discard 2 tiles at the beginning of the game that you get to see, but they're not in your supply, so you get to know which tiles you may or may not have. And then once everyone's run out of tiles, the game ends. Any incomplete settlements, like they're not finished, you get the points that are on there. So this is 2, that's 2 points. This is 1, you get 1 point. Then you get 5 points for all the castles. Then you score your mission cards. Whoever has the most is the winner. Let's take a look at the other side of the board. Now here's the Ireland side of the board. This is the more advanced gameplay. Now you'll notice that on this map, the yellow spaces are no longer cathedrals, they're towers. And these towers will randomly get placed these tiles, and then they're flipped face up so you can see which bonuses you might get when you build next to them. For example, if you go here, you can activate this, which is basically placing a second tile. Because at the beginning of this game, instead of discarding 2 tiles like the other side of the board, you actually put 4 tiles randomly. You look at them, but then they go randomly face down on a separate supply, and you get to randomly draw one of those and place it again. So unlike the other version of the game where you get rid of tiles, one of those is going to come back, or maybe even 3 of those, or 4 of them, all of them are going to come back depending on how many of these you unlock. Because you've got them in different spots. So even though you have 4 randomly removed at the beginning of the game that you get to see, you also might be able to place them later if you unlock them. Now the 13s, if you go next to all 3 of the 13s, then you get 13 points. Some of them are just worth straight points, like 3 points if you build next to this one. Now some of these allow you to get private missions. Because at the beginning of the game, there's actually 8 public missions that all of these are going to score at the end of the game depending on how well you did in these. But if you go to that private mission space, you'll get one of these that are left over, and you get to look at it and keep it secret. That's a private mission. So there's new public missions, and you can still get private missions. And if you build next to its X2, you get one of your X2 counters. And you place it next to a mission you have not completed yet. So occupy 3 offshore farm spaces. It shows you where they are. And if you're the first to do it, you're going to get 8 points times 2. But you're basically betting or saying that you're going to get it done before anyone else. Anyone else that gets to any of these later, they all are able to get the smaller points. So that's a big difference in the game as well. And there's also 4 size settlements, which give you even more points. And the rest of the game is played the same way. All right, I first want to state that I am a huge fan of Reiner Knizia. He's one of my favorite game designers. I love his abstract games, his route building games, his card games, pretty much everything. I just think he's one of the best. If there's a Mount Rushmore of game designers, he would definitely be on it. And one of the things I like about this game that is pretty consistent through all of his games is he tends to have very simple rule sets where what you're doing on your turn is very easy. Like in this case, I'm placing a tile. Next, place a tile, draw a tile, a random tile. That's it. That's all you're doing on your turn. But there is so much decision space and so much depth in this game, just like all of his games. It's great. It's that, I call it that sort of Knizia style, simple rule set, and it's excellent. It's absolutely super streamlined. I love games that are streamlined where all of the cognitive load goes into your decision space and not like understanding how all these mechanisms in a box fit together. I don't like a lot of fat in my games, and he tends to do that, and he did that here. This might be one of his most streamlined. There's a lot of route building games he's come out with, a lot of tiling, area control games. You've got Samurai, you've got Through the Desert, you've got Babylonia, you've got Aristocracy, you've got Blue Lagoon. Like it goes on and on and on, right? This is probably the most streamlined, the easiest to get into, and the easiest to teach, I'd say, from all those. But yet it still packs a huge punch with the amount of depth it has. I like that the presentation, granted there's tiles, but then there's those really cool castle pieces and the cathedral pieces. So the presentation and the table presence of this looks more epic than it is. And some people might not like that. That might be a negative for some people. They're like, you know what? The game could have been $15 cheaper if you just put, tiles that looked like castles there and you stacked them or whatever. I love it. I think it just adds, when you walk past the table when this is being played, it looks like, whoa, what are you guys playing? This game looks epic. And it's like, no, it's not epic. It's awesome, but it's not epic. But it does look that way. It does make it feel bigger than it is, and I like that. I love that you're building the clusters of energy farms or food farms, and you're placing there and you're trying to build off those, but then other people are watching you and they're trying to like block you so that you're not getting a bunch of in a row, but also getting points for them. And so you're trying to find the places on the map that will help block other people from getting lots of points, but at the same time is still being advantageous for you. That's the key to this game. Can you benefit yourself while hindering other players? And the timing of everything, of when you do this and when you do that, it feels very much like Blue Lagoon in that regard, which is, I think, might be my favorite Reiner Knizia game, where the timing is everything, is where you have all these like irons in the fire and you have all these things going off on at once in all different parts of the board, and you're you're looking at area control over here, and you're trying to protect a group over here, and you're trying to get to that cathedral over there, and at one point you're like, okay, I've got to go here now. Now's the time. I got to go here, but I'm giving up something else over here, and it's all trade-offs. It's excellent. I love the combo scoring allows for that. The area majority for the castles, it's great, and I like that the tie favors early because you're getting in there early, and if someone wants to beat you, they need to beat you. They can't tie you. If they tie you and end and finish that settlements area, they lose the tie, and so that really makes them have to come in heavy late. It's advantageous for you to get in there early, which I like, because otherwise it would be like a game of chicken, where here it's like, I'm setting a statement, I'm getting in here, you're going to have to beat me to take this from me, and I like that. I like that the settlement tiles have different sizes, 1, 2, 3s, and 4s, and they're evenly distributed. And you're trying to decide when is the right time to place the right one in the right spot. Again, another layer of depth within a mini game of the area control. The cathedrals for the goals is awesome. You're going to these spots, you're going to them earlier. A lot of times they're next to things that aren't great. They're in areas that you go here, you're not going to get a whole lot more. It's an empty space, and it's not near a lot of other things, but it's going to help you get a goal, and you get to go to these things early, and it gets to formulate your strategy. It's just brilliant. It's so streamlined and so great. The game scales with all the player counts. Even with 2, you mark off a big portion of the board, and it still feels tight enough. It's these types of games typically don't work well with 2 players. This one does. I love that there's multiple sides of the board, where you have the Ireland side and the Scotland side. I think the game is, obviously because of this reason, very easily expandable. They could come out with even just one more double-sided board with some new rules and some maybe new components and cards and things, and they could just do so much with this design space and make it either similar in complexity, or they have a lot of space here to make this more and more complex with each board if they want to. And I'm really looking forward. I hope they come out with new boards. I hope they're working on these. I like that Ireland has public goals that everyone is fighting for, and it's a race to all these, but going after some of those towers gets you a private goal. And so you have a good mix between public and private. You can wait a little longer on trying to get these private goals because no one else knows what you're really going for. All these different tower bonuses are awesome. Some of them, like the 13s, you got to get around 3 of them to get there. And so, you're willy-nilly. You got that in the back of your mind as you're going through. And where they're laid out is random every game, so every game's going to be a different puzzle. The game is just so good and so well defined. Things I don't like about the game. On the Scotland side, I don't like the luck of the draw at the beginning of the game, where number one is you choose... you randomly get 2 tiles, you get to see what they are, but then you put them face down out of your supply and they're not there. Well, what if you drew 2 of your 4 settlement tiles? Someone else didn't draw those, or any of those. I think you're at a disadvantage there. Again, that's supposed to be the more randomized, more easygoing side of the map. And maybe they wanted to level the playing field with that. I don't really like that much. I might house rule if someone pulls a 4, you shuffle it back in or something like that. I don't like that aspect. Also, it's interesting that you're just pulling one random tile, and then you're just placing it. And I get it. It makes you get play whatever you play, and it's random for everybody, right? But when you draw a certain tile, depending on what the board looks like, if you draw a 4 as your first tile, it's probably not as good as if you drew that 4 a little bit later in the game, when you could be the hammer and end a settlement and win it, right? So there is a lot of luck there. Part of me wishes that you had 2 or 3 tiles in your hand and you just choose, but then it might be too easy. But the Ireland side kind of helps with this, right? The setup is different. You get 4 tiles that are removed, but you get to see them, but you also possibly can unlock all of those if you get next to all those towers. So that randomness goes away, which is cool. So that really helps with that. And it also helps with sometimes you can place more than 1 tile. And so you're placing a tile, you're unlocking one, and you're getting to draw, I think it was 2 or 3 tiles, and you pick one of those. So the other side, the Ireland side, does kind of fix this issue. It's really mostly an issue just on the single side. Minor nitpick here. I almost think that 8 gold cards, public gold cards, almost seems like too many to be fighting for at once. It doesn't quite seem quite as tight. Maybe 8 for 4 players, and maybe scale that back for the amount of players. Maybe there's only 3 or 4 of them with 2 players, right? And then it makes it a little tighter, makes the race seem a little bit better. I would have liked to seen that scale a little bit better. Still great, just a minor nitpick. But that's it. Those are my minor nitpicks of the game. Overall, this game is fantastic. It's probably one of my favorite Reiner Knizia games. think Blue Lagoon's up there, Axio's up there. Yellow and Yangtze actually is probably my favorite all the time, but this is in the top 5, I think, for me, for Reiner Knizia games. And for all those reasons, it's staying in my library, which does not happen. Probably 1 out of every 20 games that come through this door now get a Saxophone Serenade. You might think more of them do because maybe 1 out of every 5 games might get them that I review, but I don't review every game I play. In fact, I only review probably about a third or even less of the amount of games that I actually play and get in here because there's only so many things we can cover, and I tend to cover the things I enjoy and want to spend time on. So this is getting my favorite, my big award, the Saxophone Serenade, inducting it into my gaming library, which means I got to find a game with this box size to get rid of. Oh boy, that's always a tough choice. So here we go. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, and they just launched their 4.5 Kickstarter, which will introduce the new Galactic, Mycroft, and Watson Game Toppers with interchangeable rail inlays, as well as new game mats, miniature gaming terrain packs, leg kit options, dining covers, accessories, and amazing package deals. Search for Game Toppers on Kickstarter or go to GameToppersLLC.com.